in this Zoom meeting, you should be the parent from the P5 and P6 cohort. So here, let me introduce myself. My name is Mr. Andrew Yeo. I'll be the year head for the P5 and P6 this year. I think parents from the P5 cohort this year, I think you may find me familiar because I was actually the year head for the P4 last year. Right, so it's nice to see all of you guys again, and I'm so happy to be working with you for year 2021 and also in 2022. P6 parents, I think this will be the first time you see me. So I've actually shared my email address below. So in any event you need to contact me in any of the school matters, you can actually contact me directly through the email shown below. All right. So without further ado, let me start my sharing. So just now my principal, Mr. Pick, shared the PSA result. And from his sharing, you can see that we actually did very well for the PSLE in 2021. But let's take a step backwards and ask ourselves some questions. So I planted some questions in the slides below. Like for example, why is Admiralty Primary able to achieve this kind of result? Or what is it that we are doing as a school to achieve this kind of result? And if your answer is somewhere along the line of, because Admiralty Primary has extra lessons after schools, or we actually give out extra homeworks for our students, then actually we think we are going a little bit off tangent. So let me share a little bit of on our school's philosophy. So we don't really actually believe in the drill and practice approach. All right, so giving out more worksheets doesn't necessarily mean producing better results. But we know the saying, right? Only proper practice will result in perfect results. So if the child continues to practice in the wrong manner, right, no matter how many times the child practices, right, he or she will never be able to produce better results because they are practicing the wrong habits again and again, right? So the reason why I brought this up is because I think Madam Jana, she has actually shared with the parents on a link to share with the school on what are some of the questions that you guys wanted to ask the school. And in the screen, you can see these are some of the questions that our parents actually asked. And the reason why we brought it up is because we realized that some of the questions are very in line to the previous ways of teaching, which is, I would say, it's the drill and practice approach. But however, we actually moved our philosophy. So I actually like this quote from Carol Dweck. It's about us preparing the child for the road instead of preparing the road for the child. And I feel that this really sparks a lot of thinking for all of us, because a lot of times we are preparing the child for PSLE, which should not be the case, you see, because once PSLE is over, that's not the end of the journey for them, right? Because they still have the O levels, the A levels, and then they have to go to the universities. So we should not prepare our child just for PSLE, but rather to get them to enjoy learning. And that is what the school really believes in promoting the joy of learning to the students and really moving away from the old school teaching of drilling and practice. And that is actually in line with the national posture. I apologize for the lag just now. So whatever that was shared earlier, it is actually in line with what the nation's direction is, right? As you can see here, actually just almost exactly 1 month ago, right, our Minister Chan, he shared that we should actually move away from measuring student success using the narrow yardsticks, right? So as you can see from the old PSI scoring system and the new PSI scoring system, it is evident that we are actually trying to move away from the PSLE T-score to determine the student success. And I think more importantly, what we are trying to do here is to get students to understand themselves and to constantly improve on from where they are to what they inspire to become. And I think that is more important instead of comparing themselves with others. And I think for parents and stakeholders, right, that is how we should communicate with your child as well, right? It's about them constantly improving, becoming a better person, becoming better than who they were yesterday, instead of comparing them with their peers beside them. Yeah. And also, can see from this newspaper article, right? Our principal, Mr. Big, just now shared that 80% of our students actually entered the first three choices of the school choice. And you do notice that there is no cutoff point where it is set at 4 or 5, which is almost like perfect AL score for the child. And this is evident that we are trying to move away from scoring to the, rather achieving to the last score that they have for PSLE. All right. So we want them to move away from being so exam focused and invest those times that they have into other areas, right? To diversify what they deem as successful. Okay. And quite recently as well, in 2020, during the circuit breaker, our minister, back then was Lawrence Wong, right? He mentioned that we should really explore the idea of blended learning. And here we are at Admiralty Primary. We are actually, in fact, ahead of what the national posture is. Our school has already implemented learning with technology, LWT, which my principal, Mr. Vic, has shared earlier, which I will not elaborate as well. And also personal learning devices. And I believe those parents who were with us since primary 3 and primary 4, right, you have already experienced what the personal learning device is all about. It really encourages our students to be very self-directed. And at the P5 and P6 level, although there is no such thing as the iPad class and whatnot anymore, but we should not stop them from using their personal learning device because we have already cultivated that kind of habit when they were in primary 3 and primary 4. So let's leverage on that and use whatever routines and expectations we have set at the primary 3 and primary 4 and further extend it when they are at primary 5 and primary 6. And these will only definitely support and supplement the teaching and learning in the classrooms. Okay, and proper rules and routines will definitely have to be put in place, not just at home, but also in school as well. So we hope that between the parents and the school, we will be able to work together to ensure that the rules and routines remain consistent whenever is it at home or at school, so that the same message can be sent across to the child. Okay, another area that the school is invested in for this year is this thing called the Education and Career Guidance, in short, ECG. Previously, when my principal mentioned, all right, he did share quite a lot about DSA and also secondary school choice. And these are the things that we noticed that our school students really need a lot of guidance in. So, but more importantly, it's really about getting them to acquire skills. I just listed one, for example, is the decision-making skills, right? So students need to start making decisions at the very beginning, not even just at the P5 and P6 level, but at P1s and P2s, when they start to choose their CCAs at the primary 2. So these are the things that we would like to equip our students with to be able to make informed decisions, all right? Whether is it for CCA or DSA. And it's also never too early to start planning, all right? In fact, for DSA and secondary school choice, we have already embarked our students to start planning, right? To start choosing and shortlisting and how they can achieve those schools of their choice when they are at primary 6. And also, right, when it comes to the secondary school choice, all right, our school have systematic approaches to get our students to understand where they are right now and also to aim for schools that are beyond their ability at the moment. So we identify them as stretch schools. So when students choose their secondary schools, all right, these are the things that we will use to help the students, guide them in their thinking and to make careful decisions, because we do not want them to waste the 6 choices that they have. Previously, the choices may not have a very huge stake when it comes to the Sec 1 posting. But however, this time around, you'll notice that the school choice is actually prioritized second from the citizenship. So after citizenship, all right, the placement will be based on the student's choice. And that is the reason why it is so important for students to be able to make informed decisions. All right. And also, this decision is to make parents recognize that we need to make careful decisions when they choose their secondary school. Okay. And also moving on towards DSA for all, right? Our school does want to encourage all our students to go through the DSA route. All right, and you can see from this article, only 1 out of 4 P6 students applied for DSA, and our school feel that the opportunity is wasted. All right, because DSA is already opened to all, not just to selected schools previously. Right, I think since last year, all right, DSA has already all secondary schools actually opened up DSA to all students in many different areas. All right, not just sports or the arts, but rather in leaderships as well, even in fact in academics as well. And through our conversations with our students, we realized that there are still some misconceptions that our students have. Some of them mentioned that, oh, my results are not good, so I should not go through the DSA route, which is totally untrue. And we really need to spend time, invest in these areas to clarify those kind of misconceptions that our students have, and to get them to make proper decisions and choose the correct decision that they want at the end of the P6 year. Okay, and also just now I think some of the parents asked about the PSI scoring system. We are not going to elaborate much on this because I believe there is a town hall session in April, which we will go into details about the PSI scoring system. But over here, I'm just going to show you a screenshot of how the scoring system is going to look like. I'm just going to pause here for a short while in case you need to whip out your handphones to take a photo of this. So this is just a very brief introduction to the PSI system, because we also understand that we have parents who are having their first child in the P6 level this year. So you might not have encountered this before. Okay. So after scoring AL1, AL2, etc., what does it mean for them? So here you also can see another screenshot where you can see how the total AL score will come together to put them into the different courses. All right, so minimally for Express, you need at least, or rather a maximum of only 20 AL scores. All right, if you do the simple mathematics, right, you cannot have more than AL5 per subject if you go by average. Okay, and it's also very important that in order for them to pass PSLE, they need to get AL7 or better for English and mathematics. All right, moving on to some other matters that is more pertinent to the P5 and P6 level. For the P6 levels, we do have structured lessons. Structured lessons has not started yet. All right, we are starting structured lessons after the Chinese New Year period, because at this moment, there are a lot of professional development courses and meetings for the teachers, and those meetings will actually end after the Chinese New Year period. So that's where we will start to commence structured lessons. And for the parents who were with us for a very long time, you will notice that we have actually changed our school structure. I think previously our structured lessons is on the Wednesdays, but however, we have actually moved it to Tuesday. So this is something that we need to take note of. Yeah. And mother tongue structure has not changed. It still remains the same on Thursdays. And also, some of you might have already heard this from your child. The study room is actually already open since last week. All right, the study room is at the library, and it is not a tuition center, but rather we are providing the students with a conducive environment for them to stay back, in order for them to support them in their revision, because some of them may not have the environment at home or outside the school to revise in a very conducive manner. And also do take note, the study room will only be open from Tuesdays to Fridays. It will not open on Monday. Okay, and the time will be from 2:15, which is almost immediately after school, to 5 p.m. Okay. And also, I think for the graduating cohorts, we are actually moving towards having the morning assemblies, right? I think this is recently announced from the ministry that the P6 level, they can have their morning assemblies together as a cohort, all right? We also recognize that there are some perks from having these assembly sessions in the online session segment, but also face-to-face does have its benefits as well. Okay, so we are working on an assembly program, and it's definitely not for us to cover the curriculum. All right, so that is something that I want to assure the parents. It is not for us to cover the curriculum and to go through the worksheets that they have in their from their usual classes, but it's really more about sharing what is happening in the world right now to increase their exposure, and that is definitely going to help them beyond their academics. And also, recently being shared, most of you should have received the notification by now. There is CCA, resumption of CCA moving forward, starting from next week onwards. Okay, and we also like to assure our parents that proper safe management measures are put in place. All right, and the reason why we are going towards the resumption is to allow the teaching and learning to carry on. Okay, and I think most of you will be very interested in is the assessment weighting. So over here, you can see the P5 assessment weighting for the year. All right, and these are the breakdowns for the 4 different core subjects: English, mathematics, science, and mother tongue. Okay, you can see over here, all right, there is some weightage given to LWT, which was also brought up by the principal just now. And not all areas will have the LWT segment in there. And also to assure parents, this LWT assignment is really about getting students to apply whatever they have learned in the classroom, and is to give them the extra exposure to explore what they have learned, and instead of getting them to just practice more worksheets. So that is not the whole intent of LWT. Yeah, and don't worry about getting them to get the perfect answer for LWT, because that is really not the intention. All right, we have a system put in place to ensure that the assessment for LWT is fairly weighted. Okay, I'm just gonna pause it for a while more because I believe our parents over here will be very interested in this. To give them a little bit more time to whip out their handphones to take a photo if they want to. But rest assured, these slides will be shared after this sharing. Okay, if not, I'm going to move on to the P6 assessment weighting. And you'll notice that for the P6, it is actually very clean. I think the screen has hanged for a moment. Okay, here it is. All right, so the P6 assessment is rather clean because there's just going to be 2 components that we are looking into: the mid-year paper, which is the full paper to simulate PSLE, and also the prelim paper, which is also going to reflect the performance that is closer to PSLE. All right, and I think it's very important for our students to also understand that the prelim result is equally important, because previous years we do have students who missed out PSLE because of the pandemic, and the nearest proxy that we have will actually be the students' prelim results. Okay, so I think this is something that all our students need to understand the importance of. With that, I've actually come to the end of the presentation, and I think I still have about 5 more minutes before the P1 and P2 year head segment will come to. So I'll just take this time to quickly share some of the Q&As that you guys have actually posted. Okay, so let's take a look at Jackie's question. He asked, structured lessons and study room for P6 only, or for P5 and P6? Actually, these are 2 separate areas. Maybe let me answer the structured lessons first. Structured lessons are more towards the P6s, whereas for the P5s, we do have teacher-initiated programs. So depending on the child's ability and how well is he able to perform. All right, the teacher will then initiate to have extra lessons with the child at the P5 level. But for P6, all right, all structured lessons are compulsory, and more details with a consent form will be sent out at a later date. Then with regards to the study room is actually open for all. In fact, from the P3s all the way to the P6s, right? As of now, the study room is still able to accommodate slightly. I will not encourage for the P3s and P4s at the moment, because we also need to take into account that the study room, the capacity that the study room can have. All right, but at the moment, P5 and P6s are welcome to join the study room, and that is also one of the reasons why it hasn't been opened up to the P3s and 4s yet. Okay, I think we have another question. If total PSI score is less than 20 but fail English or mother tongue, oh, okay, I think my principal is addressing that question, so I shall not. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions in here. What time is the P1 and P2 year head sharing? So the P1 and P2 year head will commence immediately after this session. So those of you who are already in here waiting for the P1 and P2 year head session, you're not at the wrong place. Just continue to stay behind. We will hand the time shortly over to the P1 and P2 year head. Okay, let me see if there's any last questions. Will there be any teachers around in the study room to help students? Yeah, it's already answered. Okay, and rest assured that all students will be well supported in the study room. And also, we also like to set the expectation with the students that the study room is really purely for revision purposes, and it's not for them to hang out to chit chat with their friends. Right. So if the purpose of them staying back in the study room is really to spend quality time with their friends, then actually we will not encourage that, because that is actually taking up the capacity of the study room. Yeah, and we would like to open it up to students who really require that conducive environment for them to start their revision. Okay. All right. Okay. I think that is good. I mean, if you do have questions after this sharing, right, don't worry about it, because you have actually taken note of my email address. So at any time, you can just send it over to the email and I will be able to address your questions personally. All right. It's almost 4 o'clock already. So if there's no other questions, I will hand the time over to the P1 and P2 year heads. For the P5 and P6 parents, you can leave this meeting to join the form teachers meeting, which you guys have already, which the form teachers were